We are live, people.
Are you ever going to come up with a better intro? How about
Nope.
we talk about how we got here?
I refuse to come up with a better one because that's the best one. You hear me?
How convenient. What a convenient narrative you live. So you're probably wondering about our surroundings right now. And guys, we finally did it.
There's a palace-like place. You were thinking probably. We finally made it. Guess
We have.
what?
We won the $1 billion lottery. Oh, come on, really? You don't want to tell them we won the lottery?
I'm just not good at lying, man. Unlike you.
It's a skill, guys. It's a skill. You got to start with lying to yourself and then slowly but surely start reaching out to others. Lie to them. It's so much easier once you can lie to yourself effectively.
All the know-how, ins and outs of, all the lying.
I would just like to
that
say...
you have developed over 3 decades, right?
Yeah. Scumbaggery comes at a high cost, but I've mastered it.
Scumbaggery is a real thing.
But, yeah, we drove through the night, and we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now.
Took us about half a day, even though it was supposed to take 6 to 7 hours.
There was a lot of hiccups.
Yeah,
but it was
a lot of hiccups.
It was a good road trip. We got some rain, saw some beautiful sights, drove through the night, so we didn't get here till about...
We talked about it yesterday. Sorry to cut you up, but keep going, Ashley. Yeah.
We got here about 1 a.m. and got everything set up now. We're just going to record this episode. So drinking some tea.
Green tea.
Yeah. Get a little caffeine in us.
It's pretty good, actually. I'm not a big fan of tea, but...
that's kind of...
Don't look at me like that.
It's kind of
offensive
to your people, but whatever.
Face. What? You don't like green tea? How dare you?
Do you own a
vegan as well?
Next thing you're going to be telling me you don't like fortune cookies, bro. What are you talking about? You don't like tea. What, you don't like kung fu either?
I happen to dislike everything, but... by the way, we noticed yesterday, right? I mean, how beautiful it was, right? Was that a northern part of Arizona, I guess?
Yeah, northern of Phoenix.
Wow.
Like, as soon as you get to Payson, and then you head east.
It was so beautiful. We started seeing greens and trees, higher altitude. It was unlike anything that you would see in central Arizona, I guess, Phoenix and southern part of Arizona, which is completely just desert, right? And the heat is unbearable.
Oh my gosh,
I hate to say that word, but pretty close. I would say. I think I'm qualified to say this at least because I spent probably half a year total in South Arizona. During the summer, the heat is unbearable. Even though it's getting better. Anyway, the point is, it's hard to see any green other than artificially planted trees. But when we were getting out of Arizona toward north, there were a lot of trees. We just couldn't believe that was Arizona, right?
Yeah, it was very beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I feel bad, Arizona. I've been calling you bad names. I've been saying poor things about you.
Right.
But what I really meant was, fuck you, Phoenix. You suck. It was city specific. Now I realize the transgression of my ways. I need to be more specific. So Arizona as a state has a lot of beauty. Just don't go to Phoenix for it because that's not where it is.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not.
Unless we're talking about those Scottsdale girls.
Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of great parts about Arizona, I think. But, I'm having a difficulty listing them. But
liar.
Anyway, we're in Albuquerque visiting Lafayette's family, right? And fortunately, there was nobody at home right now, so we decided to do our podcast. As you can see, the big island behind us is just part of this gigantic house. I don't know how big it is, but over 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, it's a big spot for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Very empty.
But what are we talking about today?
We're talking about arguably one of the best time periods of the 20th century.
Go. Yeah.
We're talking about the 90s.
Hell yeah. I'm officially Gen X, by the way, because some people define Gen X everybody who's born between mid 60s and early 80s. Some define it more specifically, like 61 to 81. Cutoff is 81.
Really?
Some say, yeah, I don't know why. Some say that like mid 60s to early 80s, but some define it more accurately from 61 to 81.
And that is that just defining that
Mhm.
this cultural influence is predominantly based in that time period? So you would be Gen X because you're influenced by the same culture for the last 20 years. They say like, okay, here's a shift in
Right.
culture, and then they readjust what the name is. I don't know how it works. That's why I'm
Well,
asking.
because the term, I think it was coined for the first time in 1991 or 2 by this novelist, I forgot the gentleman's name, in his book.
Oh,
I think that's where he coined for the first time. And obviously, you can talk about similarities and the cultural impacts of a certain generation. That's totally possible, right? But we tend to do that so that we can have just more practical means of having conversation,
Yeah.
about different generations. I think it's just for the convenience, honestly, and then distinguish between those generations, cultural elements, and other things. Yeah,
That makes sense. What am I then? Do you know what?
you're a millennial officially.
Millennial?
Yeah.
Bullshit. Let me tell you about them goddamn millennials fucking ruined the country for all of us.
You're officially millennial.
That's right, $1 million, baby.
I think I can be millennial too. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. See, it's just fucking slippery when you start trying to classify and do
people
all.
like me. I mean, if you're close to the end of previous generation, and the earlier period of next generation, then you're kind of in between, right? You've experienced. Doesn't matter what the definition is. You've experienced both. Yeah. So in my opinion, in between is kind of the best age groups of each generation.
Very interesting.
I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I
if
think so,
if
yeah.
I were
Yeah.
if I was born in '62, for example, I mean, I would know a lot more about baby boomers and that '60s culture. I don't know if I haven't experienced '60s culture. I just know indirectly. I experienced it indirectly.
I mean, we know the bigger things like the
So-
hippie movement, free love,
Mhm.
Woodstock, anti-war with Vietnam. We know those
Mhm.
types of elements
Yeah.
that then, obviously drifted over into the 70s
Mhm.
and even to some regard the 80s.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
for
it's
sure.
impossible to
Yeah.
disassociate those two things entirely. But let's talk about the favorite thing that you had in the 90s. Was there something specific that stands out for you when somebody says, 90s or 90s kid?
Mhm.
What comes to mind?
There are so many things, but I think it's really important to the reason I think, of course, I think everybody has biased opinions about their
Mhm.
generation, because that's the generation that they actually experienced. That's the decade they actually
Yeah.
experienced, right? It's the most nostalgic time. So I think there's a little biased element in this, but in my opinion, though, the 90s was truly the most evolving time and the peak of American culture generally across the board. The reason I'm thinking that way is that it was backed up by very influential events. One of them is the economic boom, right? We had those economic boom before 20s, 50s, post World War II, but it was unprecedented in that it lasted for a decade.
Yeah.
That was another thing. About the 90s economic boom, it is unprecedented because it lasted for a long freaking time, unlike others. And then that was, by the way, because of mostly moderate interest rate and growth rate. I mean, this is not anything about economy, but when economy grows too rapidly over, I think the Fed usually puts at aims for like 6%, 7%, 6.5. But if that growth rate is too rapid, too high, then you're risking going into this end phase of business cycle, right? The fluctuation, which can lead to inflation, therefore recession. But the reason the 90s economic boom lasted for a long time was that because of that moderate growth rate, it was kept under 6% the entire decade. That's why we had that economic boom for a long time. If you look at 20s economic boom, the growth rate was 42%. Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy. So you
Yeah.
cannot really manage that to last for a long time. You just can't.
Yeah, I mean, we also had the birth and, I mean, resurgence isn't the correct word, but the new age of technology.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Stepping into it, fully committed.
Mm-hmm.
The internet, right? I mean,
Yes, that's what I was going to say. That the second biggest factor that fit to all the growth of cultural elements and other sectors was the internet revolution.
Yeah, the dot-com bubble, everything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, for the first time, we had easily accessible. Well, I shouldn't say easily, right? Now everybody had dial-up, and it was a pain in the ass to use dial-up too. You remember
Right.
that? We've talked about that stupid sound. Insert sound clip.
We did actually, right?
Whatever, yeah. You know that horrible dial-up sound, and you're like,
Right.
oh, nobody can be on the phone right now. I'm connecting to the internet.
Right.
AOL, fucking
Right.
CDs, and things like that.
Yeah.
But it was a huge thing for also the media industry.
Mhm.
You know, an effective way to market and advertise
Yeah.
that's never been seen before. And then you had people coming together on internet forums, creating boards and having discussions
Yeah.
and really developing this internet culture, this
Yeah.
type of kind of modern culture
Yeah.
where it doesn't require us to be in person with one another to
Mhm.
have it with a whole bunch of different people from all parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally evolutionary. When we start to look at browser came out for the first time, now we can see text and picture on one page. Evolutionary. It's nothing now, right? But back then, you can communicate through text and pictures with someone on a web page where you still feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable. You know, the blue screen and green screen, whatever, you know. But that's when we really started internet, the 90s. I think it was early 90s when Congress passed this, I forgot the name of the legislation, but that allowed internet for commercial use. So companies started, you know, producing their products and services, and yeah, from that point is the history, really.
Yeah, it was like the most effective way for us to communicate with each other.
Mhm.
And so you're going to see a rapid progression in the culture as
Yeah.
well, right? You know, the arts. Hell, man. I mean, the sciences. Everything was benefited to some regard
Mhm.
by the technological advancement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other than maybe potentially some humanitarian things,
Mhm.
there's definitely some argument about technology may be regressing us for humanitarian causes.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument to be made there, but that's neither here nor there, is it?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fucking Bulls.
Bulls. Yeah, I was gonna say that if I'm asked, if I have to choose one phenomena in the 90s that was the most prominent over time, over the decade, I will have to say Air Jordans, really, because he was big, man. The brand was big. The explosion of Bulls, the popularity, and even I grew up in Korea. Everybody knew Michael Jordan. Like literally everybody knew Michael Jordan. Even my parents knew who Michael Jordan was.
Dude, yeah. Even when I was in Israel in 2000, Michael Jordan, you know?
Yeah.
Even in Thailand when we were recently there, oh, Michael Jordan, Bulls, Bulls, you know?
Yeah.
Cab drivers. It's still that
Yeah.
powerful of an influence that he had. I mean,
Yeah.
literally changed the world. I think if you look it up, he's one of the most influential people in history and
Mhm.
well-known figures.
Yeah.
You know, similar up there with like Michael Jackson. And again,
Yeah,
we're
dude.
talking about cultural figures, not necessarily people that have changed the world for, technological, humanitarian, or other reasons, but cultural figures.
Mhm.
Undeniable his impact.
Yeah, and I think that was possible. I think it's because at that time, the athletes or celebrities really didn't have any platform to communicate directly with their fans. So in a
Mhm.
way that they had this, how do you say? Um, People had that respect and fantasy about them too, because they didn't know anything about them. They didn't. Those athletes and celebrities really didn't reveal their personal stuff, or how they talk, how certain opinions by them on certain things, like these days athletes and celebrities do
Yeah.
today, right?
Yeah.
So I think in a way that people had more fantasy about those celebrities and big figures.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that makes total sense because it also went from being this niche type of conversation where you could only have, these very small, intimate settings, or
Mhm.
perhaps you're one of the lucky people that goes to a press conference, gets to hear it,
Mhm.
but the only people that are reporting on it are going to be sports writers and possibly the newspapers, which again will limit the
Mhm.
amount of people that are exposed to the commentary,
Yeah.
what the people are talking about, what these athletes are doing,
Yeah.
how relatable they are.
Yeah.
It's like the first time where you can actually, I wouldn't say the first time, but because there's people before this, obviously. But here, with this unique situation we're in, economic success, cultural boom, technology boom,
Mhm.
wow, we can have somebody legitimately be who's an athlete, basically a movie star,
Yeah.
like a household name
Yeah.
for everybody around the world.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Right, and then that was only accelerated, boosted by his new brand, his own brand, and he's not own brand, but his brand with Nike, Air Jordan, right? I think that really accelerated his popularity as well. It was a means to spread his popularity, spread his charisma.
Mm-hmm.
If there wasn't no Air Jordan, he was just purely a good basketball player, or if you want to put it as the best basketball player of all time, whatever. He was just probably a really famous athlete, still maybe popular, but he had that means, shoes, clothing that people could relate through to him, right? I think that really cemented his position internationally
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of that product
I mean, who
line.
doesn't want to wear the same things that the best basketball player in the world's wearing?
Yeah, exactly.
Arguably.
Yeah.
Fucking A. Yeah, yeah. Dude, I'll wear a shirt. I'll wear his, his shoes.
Yeah.
Let's do it. They were a huge deal for a very long time.
His shoes were not cheap at all. Yeah.
I never owned a pair.
Me
I've
either.
never owned a pair of Jordans.
Later,
And I fucking think
became-
they're sick.
Yeah.
I still think they're sick, but I never owned a pair.
I think it was common for teens to do part-time job and, gather
yeah.
money and buy Jordan.
Oh, man, that's a good
Pair of
question. What
Jordans.
was the first thing you were going to buy with your part-time job? What was it? You're like, you know what? I'm going to do a part-time job so I can purchase this one thing. Can you remember?
Yeah, one thing, it was during the 90s, during the time, certain fashion items were really popular. One of them was that like color blocked windbreakers and also starter jacket. Like because
Oh,
of
yeah,
that,
yeah.
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 That's what I wanted to buy. Yeah, it was pretty expensive. And then, I could wear that fall and even winter. So it was really practical. It was expensive, but it was practical. And I played basketball all the time when I was young. So that's what I wanted to buy. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Practical, useful, and fucking fly as hell.
Yeah. And when I was young, beyond Jordan and all that, the big brands were really popular when I was young. In the 90s, Adidas. People may ask me like, "Oh,
He's basically an Adidas rep. All you wear is Adidas.
Those were popular before." Yeah, of course. But I think, again, because of the economic boom, those brands became, I think, a lot bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
for
Korea
sure.
was in a unique position as well, so that they
Mhm.
could be receptive to
Mhm.
this kind of change in media and culture that
Yeah.
was basically a worldwide phenomena. Again, because of the internet,
Yeah.
everybody
sure.
could contribute, adapt, adopt,
Mhm.
and kind of put their own spin on it. So it seems like it worked parallel with like Korea's economic stability at that
Mhm.
time, right? Because you guys were just basically finishing early development in the 90s
Yeah,
at this
90's
point.
were no, actually 90's were that's like 70's and 80's where we could finally come back from the devastation of war. 90's was more like new era for the bigger player of the economy. Samsung, for example. Samsung had been by the way, it's like we're going into um
Are you trying to kick out our non-Patreon members? I'm sorry, guy. He always does this. I say, let's just let them all watch. And he says, no, they have to be Patreon members and they have to pay us $10,000. I said, that's a pretty good deal. So, yeah, we got to kick you out. Sorry, guys.
yeah, this is the end for the free version this week. Thanks for listening, guys.
Leave
See
a
you
comment,
next week.
subscribe,
Yeah.
leave hate mail, send nudes. All right, see you guys.